Hello, and welcome to You've Got Skills, a series of creator-led workshops on topics that were voted on folks like you. My name is Kim, and I'm a content marketing manager, and I'm excited to be here today, kicking off our very first workshop in the series by our very own Frank Wolf, co-founder and chief strategy officer here at Staffbase and author of The Narrative Age. Frank will be walking us through a simple 4-step method for building communication strategies that go beyond the initial spark of a gut feeling and instead are grounded in real insights and narratives that are likely already on your employees' minds. Before we get started, I wanted to share a quick rundown of today's session. So the first 25 minutes we'll be learning and hearing from Frank, followed by takeaways. Then we'll conclude with the Q&A. And the session will be available here on LinkedIn after the event. But as questions come up, feel free to drop them in the chat. We want this to feel like a conversation. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome Frank.
Thank you very much, Kim. Really great to be here. It's a lot of content and a lot of input today to cover, so feel free and get ready to see all of this. One major thing is whatever presentation I show today, you will get the link afterwards, so you don't have to write down anything. I will give you a lot of prompts. That's all good. You will see this afterwards. We've done this webinar before. We've seen it's best if you just watch and follow along. It's probably pretty much too fast to for you to do the steps by yourself while I'm doing this. So here is an overview of what we want to do today, and also what's kind of the steps I want to lead you through with this webinar. We will start with a few basics because there's a couple of things to understand, like what's a story, what's a narrative, and what do I define as a strategy. And then we go through 4 steps, define the narrative shift, map the narrative landscape, design the narrative change strategy, and craft a narrative constellation. So you already see it's a lot about narratives. No worries, we will define what it is and how to deal with it. And each of the steps will be assisted by AI, and I will give you a sample prompt that will help you to teach your AI program, whatever you use. I will use ChatGPT in the case to do that. Before I get started, I want to do one short thing, and it's a remarkable day for us here at Staffbase today, because we just launched, like really an hour ago, the AI program for Staffbase that we call Employee AI. And we are so proud because it's the most ambitious program we have in the communications and employee experience market. It's a full plan and of features and products that we are launching around AI to make AI accessible for everyone, for all employees, no matter if they're sitting at a desk, if they are on the front line. And we are super proud to bring this to market. I don't want to talk much more about this. I just want to encourage you, if you have the time, check it out. Go to staffbase.com and learn more about Employee AI. There will be a lot more things coming, and we are super thrilled that we finally are able to talk about it. Now, talking about AI, we want to focus today not so much on the employee side, but on the communicator and HR side, and want to talk about how can AI help you to better define your strategies and the messages you want to use for your initiatives. For the basics, 2 short things. One is, if you think about a communication strategy in general, there could be a lot of things that we mean with a communication strategy. And a couple of years ago, we published this canvas. You may know this picture is borrowed from the business model canvas, and we can use this also to think about communication strategies. And you see already here, a communication strategy can be a pretty broad thing. It can be what's the team like, what's the budget like, and what are key activities, what are the channels we're using, and so on. But the core of a communication strategy is actually, what are the key messages, the key narratives that we want to drive? And typically, comms teams have a couple of them, maybe 1, 2, or 3, maybe more, but ideally not so many more, where they say, this is our key goal of the year to go with. And what we will focus today on is these key narratives and key messages. And I want to show you a method that makes it much easier, much more straightforward, but also more sophisticated to go from a here's where we stand today and here's where we want to go, and here's the change we want to support with this narrative. So this is where we are in the terms of the calm strategy. And another thing to define as a basic is there's a difference between stories and narratives. And if you follow us along, if you maybe you've also had a chance to check out the book that's called The Narrative Age, the key difference is if you think about stories, you think about individual tales, like something's happening somewhere and we can't tell it. And a lot of communicators are today kind of in the storytelling world, and we call this tactical storytelling because it's one story at a time. It's sometimes even kind of a journalistic mindset inside of the company. And it's great because stories are super engaging. But what we actually want to do is drive something and drive people and change people's mind and help them to get somewhere and align them to what we want to do with the strategy or the change programs we are doing. So the shift is don't just think about individual stories, think about larger stories, patterns of stories, and these patterns are called narratives. And don't think about communicators as storytellers, but as narrative creators. So what we want to do today is we are on the right side here, and we want to talk about narratives. And I want to quickly define again what I mean with a narrative. As I said before, narratives are patterns that emerge from stories. And it's best to understand this with an example and specifically also the interaction that both have. So stories and narratives are very much linked and they are both important. But narratives frame stories and put them into a larger context. And stories bring narratives to life and build credibilities. So you cannot kind of build a narrative directly. You have to build a narrative through stories, but it makes so much more sense to know where you want to go overall with your communication, with the narrative, because this helps you to pick the right stories and tell the right stories, which really drive where you want to go. Here's an example about AI. This is a screenshot from one of the most important science fiction movies of all times, Space Odyssey 2001 from 1968. And this is a story about space and AI and how AI kind of turns evil and starts to betray the astronauts in the movie. And we know a lot of these stories from books and other movies about how AI kind of turns evil. We've seen warning from tech insiders about AI, and maybe if you use ChatGPT or other things, you've seen some malfunctions and alignment problems with AI. And all these individual stories that we have, they've created a narrative. And the narrative is no matter how good or trustworthy AI gets, it will eventually betray humans. There are hundreds or thousands of other narratives. So it's not the only narrative about AI that's out there, but it's one of them. And what you already see here, a narrative is kind of the same thing as a story, but it's more abstract, right? It's not a specific actor, not a specific hero, but it's more general. It's kind of a pattern that's created, but narratives have the same structure. They have a beginning, a middle, and an end, right? And the interesting thing for communicators is you're on the left side, you're telling stories, but what happens in the mind and the brain of your audience, narratives are created. And it's quite important to think in narratives because, as we will see with the narrative landscape, it's quite important what are the narratives people already believe. And if you know that, you can tell better stories, you can align your messaging, you can create a better messaging strategy. And this is what we will do today. So I promised you 4 steps. And for the 4 steps, we start with the typical beginning of every communication strategy, because you have a shift. You have a where are you today? What's the current dominant narrative? And you have something where you want to go. What's the future narrative you want to establish? And if this feels kind of abstract, think about this in a very easy example. Think about the topic you want to talk about, and think about one of your employees goes home, sits at the table at the evening, and talks to their family, and somebody asks like, hey, what's up in the company about this and this topic? What would this person say in their own words? And there you have the current dominant narrative about a certain topic. For instance, hey, Dad, like AI is a big topic now everywhere. Like, what's your company doing about this? What would one of your employees say in this case? That's the current narrative. And you can define how do you want to change that? Maybe in 1 year, 2 years, or whatever. When we talk about narrative changes, it's typically a longer time frame. It's not just a couple of weeks. It takes time to change narrative. So the narrative shift is the first step in our four-step process. And I promise you to provide a help with AI to help us set this up, define what we want to do, and also we will use AI to gather all the input that we need to make this work. So the first one is a prompt to define the narrative shift. And I will not read through the whole prompt. I will show you how I use this prompt in ChatGPT, how I put this in, and how I will give context. Because what's super important, AI cannot know everything about this. Like, it's just we give it the structure on what we want to do, but then I have to give input. And that's also something I will do as an example. And I will take my own company, Staffbase, as an example, and I will take AI, in this case, also as an example, as you will see. So let's get started and use this prompt. So I will copy and paste the prompt. As I said, you will get the prompt afterwards, and I will switch to ChatGPT. And here we go. I put in the prompt, and let's see what's happening. Okay, it's very good. It understood what's going on and is waiting for notes. Now, if you would have existing notes from existing focus groups or from existing research or things how you want to change the narrative, that's good. You can paste this in, but in most of the cases, you may not have this. And a great way to do this is now to give input via the voice mode. And I will do this and show you how this could work. And think about this in terms, what I do now, you could do in a lot more time. And you could also ask colleagues and other people to gather exactly this kind of input. Let's get started. So we want to talk about the current narratives and what we want to achieve. Hey, so change that I want to talk about and that we are aiming for is about how we at Staffbase perceive AI for our own use, but also for the way we use this within our product. The current narrative is, I would say it's actually, it's not negative. It's there's a lot of openness about what AI is doing and the benefits and features of AI. But on the other hand, it's also is not there's people are not totally enthusiastic about this. There's kind of this mix of what's going on. Will this be challenging for my job and so on. And what we see right now is that there are early tests in a lot of different areas, but it's kind of this understanding that we are in an industry because Staff is an employee communications platform, and a lot of our customers are employee communicators, and they are very visible and they are very obviously very risk averse in what they are doing and the new technology they are doing. And this kind of also comes into our culture as a company, even though we are still like we're 10 years old, we're still startup, but this kind of limits us in some ways to say, hey, let's move forward super fast with AI. And this is where we currently at. So it's kind of an openness, but it's also kind of this understanding, hey, we are waiting for things and let's wait and see and let's keep observing, but we are not the first one on this to arrive, right? And this is where we are today. And I will give you, in the next prompt, I will give you some ideas on where we want to go with this. So you've seen, you can pretty much put in a lot of stuff with voice. And even I was super unstructured now. I just put like, you're sitting with somebody over coffee, and it's kind of the same understanding. But this already helps to kind of give a lot of context to the AI. It already gives me here, it has some employee health narratives. It gives me already target options, what could be possible, but I can also use now, like I'll do this very quick in terms of time. hey, I already like to talk. I think the major thing is we want to shift the narrative from we are waiting and seeing and we are open to this. We want to be the key driver of this. And we want to be a key driver for our internal processes and how we adopt AI, but also how we utilize AI in the industry. We want to be the ones that move forward and at the cost of kind of also that some of our customers may say, hey, this is super fast, you're doing all these things, but that's okay. But we want to be at the kind of at the cutting edge of what's happening with AI and what we bring to our customers. And we want to be very open with them, but we want to be an innovator, and we want to be the ones that are taking the action now rather than waiting, sitting back and see. And this is kind of the narrative shift. And we want to make our employees feel that this is safe. And we also, as we will see in the next section, we want to help them to understand that this is not a major shift in terms of our identity, because we've always been like this. Okay, again, a bit unstructured on how I did this, but I hope you kind of see where this is going. Imagine this could be a lot more input from the whole team, in a bit more also from different angles, maybe from leaders and so on, right? So what I get back, and this is super helpful, is that it already kind of takes this kind of unstructured input and gives you current employee health narratives, target narrative options, and likely objections, and now gives us the final kind of, this could be, this is where we're going, right? And I can say, yes, I like it. And we could say, okay, we got step number one locked. And I would go back now to step number 2. So let's get back to the presentation. Let me see if I can do this here. Okay, you see the prompt. So step number 1. Now step number 2. The insight from narratives is a narrative and a messaging will only work really well if it resonates what your people already think about the topic. So it's quite important to understand what are the existing narratives that they already have in mind. And here in this case, we talk about the narrative landscape. And what I've described in my book is a way, kind of a very easy way to think about existing narratives and map them into, based on distribution and cultural embeddedness, into a couple of like 4 key main narratives. And I don't want to talk too deep about this. If you're interested, check out the book, and we will also have this in the prompt. The major thing is the deeper it's embedded, the higher the cultural embeddedness, the more powerful, but the more hidden this is. And the cool thing about these hidden narratives, AI is such a good helper to kind of help you uncover them, because there's one rule: the deeper the narratives are, the less we are aware that we actually have them, right? So for AI, there are here a couple of examples what could be deep narratives that we have in our mind. One that I really like is the master narrative of Pandora's box, that we think once, if AI goes rogue once and it does something really weird and it's super powerful, we can never catch it back in, right? So that would be one example of a deep narrative that we may hold about narratives. So how can we map the narrative landscape? Here is the prompt. I will again copy paste the prompt, and we go to ChatGPT again, and I will put in the prompt. Let's see what's happening. Cool, I like it. So ChatGPT understood I will give feedback, and it pretty much said, hey, Frank, go ahead. I will now, because of time, be rather quick with what I give as a feedback, as an input here. And then let's see where this will lead us. Okay, let's get started. Okay, so as a feedback, we are a pretty global company, and there are different groups of employees at Staffbase, and I think it's quite interesting to look at them in separate ways. I want to describe two key groups. One is a lot of the product management, like the engineers, product managers. They are based in Germany, and they've been building this platform for the last 10 years. And they've been innovating in a lot of ways on how we do comms. We invented the employee app, we invented front door intranets, we invented multiple channel intranet, and so on. And so they feel, hey, we are super fast inventors, right? But they still have seen inventions, like the speed of inventions. There's only have some limits, and you cannot bring new things all the time. On the other hand, they've also they're a very proud audience. So they are super proud about their deep technical skills, and they are kind of very sensible about non-technical people telling them how AI will change their job. So they are very aware that AI is there, but it's a very sensible audience to talk to. That's number one, and that's we need a specific narrative for them or an angle, but specifically also what are the existing narratives of this audience. And another audience that's kind of different is, for instance, in the US, where a lot of our business is running. We have people sitting in different locations, like New York, Minneapolis, and others. And they are more on the go-to-market side and customer service side. They are super thrilled and bold about AI, and they want to make AI work for our customers. And they are super open to move fast, and they get a lot more demand to move faster with things and kind of also innovate faster on things. And I want to bring them also in and make them feel they get supported enough with that, with all the innovations we are launching and what we are doing. So these are two groups, and keep in mind they are in different also locations with maybe different basic master narratives. And I need you to come up with the right, some good ideas of what's the narrative landscape for those groups and maybe other groups. So you've seen, like, this was again super fast. The I could do a lot more input here, and you can also utilize ChatGPT to help you with input. So you can say, hey, ask me questions. I have no idea what else I should tell. Give me questions, right? So here it gives me again master narratives, emerging narratives, local identities. Wonderful. So it's really helpful again. How AI helps you to kind of structure. And again, you've seen my input was super unstructured and super like just thrown into the machine. But AI helps you with the right intentions here to really focus on these and bring out a good master narrative. So that's number two. And now we go back, and I will quickly run through the last two things here. One is the design the narrative change strategy. And really quick, if you think about narratives, there are different ways how to change them. There's a counter narrative. So I take the existing belief and I try to change that. In quite a few cases, this is super hard, but you can do it. And the other one is, I don't even try to change an existing belief, but I try to find an even more important, deeper narrative that beliefs are connected to and kind of bring out an alternative narrative. It's sometimes hard to understand the difference here. Two super easy examples. Domino's Pizza had a couple of years ago did a turnaround because people were saying pizza tastes like cardboard, and Domino's did a campaign with a counter narrative. They admitted, like, saying that's a narrative, and you're right, and we will change this. And here's the new receipt, and it's much better, and so on. So attack the narrative heads on as a counter narrative, and if the narrative, if it's a real serious thing, you have to do that. The other way is find an alternative narrative, which means don't attack the narrative heads on. That's from a gym in Chicago, where they, I think, show a really good way to say, I have an existing argument and I don't even want to go into this argument, and I will bring back another argument, which is way stronger because it connects to a much more powerful master narrative. This idea is something we can teach to the AI, and I will just show you the prompts here in terms of time. You can do this by yourself. In this case, the good thing is you don't have to give too much input here, because the input is given now. Like we go from A to B. You have the input of the narrative landscape, and now you can make AI work for you and say, give me a couple of strategy options. It could be from both sides, and I want to decide what I'm using here, right? So this is number 3, and this is the prompt about how to design the narrative change strategy. Finally, number 4, if we have now kind of a new narrative and a change strategy and what to connect to, the typical thing in the narrative world is that a narrative typically doesn't stand alone. It's more kind of a narrative constellation where you have a core narrative at the core, but you, as I said before, you will connect to certain other narratives which are there and which you may want to create. And that's sort of what's being called a narrative constellation. And it's good to understand that there might be a few narratives that you want to support, but usually you will have one in the core in the middle that's most important, and that's kind of the core of the shift. Again, for the narrative constellation, a lot of people are struggling with what is this and how can I work with this? AI is super helpful to help us to kind of back this up and build this in a way. And also you can use AI later to make a visual constellation sketch here, because this can become your communication strategy to say, hey, this is the narrative we want to build. These are the supporting narratives around that we also want to fuel and want to build. And this is such a great target picture for communication strategy. And again, we have a prompt for that. And again, the prompt is based on the insights that we found in the research. That's also, most of this is in the book, but this is condensed for you just in one slide, how you can prompt for this. And here again, you don't have to give too much of your own input. That this will work based on all the input we've given ChatGPT or another model before, and it will give you out a couple of ideas how to say, okay, here's the central narratives, here are the supporting narratives with that. So summing up with this strategy, and I hope this wasn't too much information in such a short time, we are going away from kind of guessing what a comm strategy is to a real step-by-step process, which really takes into account, like, what's the audience thinking, where do we want to go, and how can we build the strategic messaging in a really good way. And I think that's a real step change. Impossible, I would say 2 or 3 years ago. AI makes this now possible to roll this out and give this to everyone who wants to be a better communicator. So I hope this was helpful. We may have some time for questions and feedback. Let me know. I hope we have some feedback and questions.
All right. So, yeah, as Frank said, if you have any questions, please drop them in the chat. And yeah.
Other than that, like whoever thinks, hey, interesting topic, I have a more complicated or longer question, or maybe later, feel free to add me on LinkedIn. I'm always happy to talk about storytelling, narratives, AI. And as I said, there will be a lot more coming from Staffbase about AI, specifically employee AI from today on. Cool.
All right. So, yeah. So again, feel free to drop any questions in the chat. But thank you so much, Frank, for sharing the step-by-step breakdown on using AI to uncover and help give structure to a variety of narratives and how to weave them into a narrative constellation. So
yeah, thanks, Kim.
yeah.
Again, if there are questions coming up, let us know. We're happy to talk about this stuff for a very long time. And yeah, happy to see you soon on another LinkedIn Live or another session from Staffbase.
Yeah, and thank you all for being here. We hope you left with some good ideas and frameworks to take back into your own work. And the webinar will be available on LinkedIn shortly, so make sure to keep an eye out for that. And our next session will be October 2nd with Cecily Crossley from Uplifting People about purpose-driving storytelling. So make sure you follow us on LinkedIn for updates. Until then, thank you again, and have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thank you. Bye-bye.